Stay hopeful.
Stay hopeful.
Stay hopeful.
Stay hopeful.
Hey man, say man, it's Brother Charles.
And I'm Jasmine.
Welcome to another episode of the Hopefull Romantics podcast. This week we are talking about how to heal from past relationships. You know what I'm saying? Alright, we about to get to the nitty gritty, but we're going to start off the right way. Father God, in the name of Jesus, we give you praise and honor, Lord, for this opportunity to minister through this podcast. Allow those who listen and allow those who watch to be blessed by what we say today. Give us the words, give us the guidance in order to be a blessing. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
All right, so today we're going to start off with a few scriptures just to give context to what we're discussing, because it is kind of a sticky topic and can get a little complicated, but a lot of times we forget that we can use the word to really guide us through some of the most confusing aspects of our life. So we're coming out of Psalms 73:26. And it says, "My health may fail and my spirit may grow weak, but God remains the strength of my heart. He is mine forever."
We also wanted to talk about Psalms 143, 3 through 10. It's a little long, so we didn't want to read through it, but it talks about David and how he's feeling hopeless and full of fear, how he's dealing with depression, but how he is leaning on God and his unfailing love for us to kind of be the hope in a hopeless situation.
And a lot of times we'll be in relationships and it'll seem as though all hope is lost. It will seem like we don't really know the next move to make. And a lot of times that can put us in a situation where we don't know if we should break things off. We don't know if we should stick things out. So today we're going to talk about really what to do when you've decided to break it off. You decided to go ahead and make that next step.
Yep.
And what that can look like and feel like.
And also, once the relationship has ended, there are a lot of emotions. And that's when I read Psalms 143, it kind of reminds me of all the emotions that we feel once something has ended, you know. So it's a lot that goes into ending a relationship, but it doesn't stop there. Like, your healing process really starts when things are over and you kind of have to like put the pieces back together.
For sure. So the guiding question for this episode is, do you have to be fully healed before your next relationship? And folk gonna be like, absolutely, like, why would you attach yourself to somebody if you, like, number one, relax, you're a little excited. And
a lot of people on Twitter, and you'll see like little quotes circulating around like having to be like your best version of yourself before you can enter into a relationship, or love yourself or nobody will love you. This idea that you have to be like completely whole, completely,
polished,
right, and absent of flaw, or absent of, the process of dealing with a lot of your life experiences in order to be in the best position to have a healthy relationship. We wanted to talk about how that's not necessarily true. Like, the processes that we have to go through, whether it's healing, whether it's forgiveness, whether it's just personal growth, like all of these things are, they're complex, and it's not just like a beginning and an end. It's called a process for a reason.
Healing isn't linear, but more cyclical, right? So you could get out of a situation and be like, you know what, like, that was cool for what it was. We went through our process. But now, like, all right, I'm gonna make my next move.
Yeah.
I'm gonna work on me, or I have someone else that I have in mind. Like, we'll see what happens, right? And then you think that you've gotten over this person. You think that you've gotten over the situation as a whole. And then months may go by, a year may go by, and feelings of either like grief or frustration or just like remnants of the relationship can start to kind of like fester up in you, and you're like, oh, where is this even coming from? And the reason that happens is healing is a cycle, right? So you'll think like, okay, I made progress, and then something will happen where you feel like you're regressing, and then something will happen again, you'll make progress, regress, progress, regress. And some might think that they're stuck in a cycle, but honestly and truly, you're moving forward, right? And as long as you're addressing the things that you're feeling, as long as you're processing the things that you're feeling, you're moving forward, you're progressing. But you just have to take a step back sometimes and recognize that everything isn't just going to be instantaneously fixed, right? You're not going to wake up one day and it's like, all right, that situation is done with. I'm completely over it. Sometimes like years can go by and something can trigger you based off something that you went through. So you can't get discouraged if you're coming out of, let's say, whatever type of relationship. And we're coming from a space, not necessarily talking about relationships that end from like extremes, whether it be like abuse or something like that. Right. We're just talking about the nitty gritty. We all in our 20s, 30s, whoever's watching, God bless you, right? But we're all trying to figure out this relationship thing. And sometimes like people just can't come with you. Yeah. Right? Oof, you had an idea that this person was going to be it, and it just didn't work out, whether it be a level of miscommunication, whether y'all were just headed on different paths and God said you need to go this way and this other person needs to go that way. We're all in that type of place in our lives where we need to really learn how to accept that, right? While also simultaneously recognizing that there's a level of processing that needs to go along with that.
Yeah. One thing, I was in college when I had just ended a relationship and I was taking it pretty hard, and somebody, I think it was a mentor, somebody, I don't remember. It was an adult, like somebody who was clearly older than me. And they said, like, I know you're upset, like, I know you're hurt, like, you're dealing with all these emotions. But in reality, when you think about dating, traditionally, relationships end in two ways. Like, you either get married or you break up, and you can't marry everybody. So we think about the goal. If your goal is marriage, you're marrying one individual. So that means all of the relationships, all of the people, all of the situationships, whatever that looks like for you leading up to that marriage, you have to look at as a lesson, And one thing that I learned trying to process, like letting someone go, letting situations go, is that you really have to focus on the lesson rather than the person. Because if you focus on like he or she did this, they did that, like they hurt me, they said all these different things. And if you look at the behaviors, you will stay in the cycle. It is a cycle in regards to the process of healing. But a lot of people can stay in the cycle of bitterness and anger and never get to the healing because we're just so focused on what that person did to you. Rather than taking a step back and saying, for whatever reason, this person didn't have the capacity to love me the way that I needed them to. So I'm going to let that go. I'm going to take what I'm supposed to from that situation and keep it pushing, And I say capacity because it took me a long time to realize that everyone doesn't have the same capacity to love. I realized that when I realized, that I'm a giver. Like I give energy, I give time. Like I would say I'm a pretty good friend because I am such a generous giver in terms of like what I'm willing to sacrifice, like what I'm able to extend to someone else so that they can feel loved, so they can feel wanted, for they to feel better, and it would become frustrating when that person couldn't give me what I was giving them. And you really have to recognize that we all have different capacities for different things. And when you go into a romantic relationship, you're seeking someone who has the capacity to love you in the way that you need to be loved. And when that doesn't work out, it's not meant to be. The person that you end up with should have the capacity to love you consistently the right way. And when you take that for truth, when you take that as fact, it's much easier to look at things and be like, it is what it was, like, thank you. What is it? Thank you next. Thank you next. Like,
but that's way easier said than that.
Oh, for sure.
It takes a minute. Honestly, let me just it takes a minute.
I'm not in it.
Yeah, there you go. It takes a minute for, I think, anyone to realize, like, especially after a relationship, like, dang, like, there were so many different levels.
Oh, yes.
There was so many different things that needed to happen, right, that just simply didn't. You feel what I'm saying? And I think that, at least in my previous relationships, it took me getting out of them to recognize how I wasn't being really fed in them, right? Because you can get so comfortable. Because my main thing is when I talk about breaking up, period, right? Of course, if you really care for somebody, that hurts.
Yeah.
Right? Losing someone that you love, that hurts. But honestly and truly, I think we as people grief the habit more so than like the relationship. Like if you're waking up every day, texting the same person, calling the same person. If it's good news in your life, you talking to that person. If it's bad news in your life, you talking to that person. Homegirl at your job blowing you, you hitting homie up or homegirl up. If you know what I'm saying, your parents is doing too much, you hitting them up. Right? If you want to try something out that's new or anything, like that's who you're going to, and then you lose that person for whatever reason, you're going to be grieving that habit and have a hard time breaking that habit more so than you're going to really be thinking about the feelings, right? So when you're able to, but you have to be able to deject one from the other. So as soon as you're able to deject like the habit from the person, you should really start that process of recognizing like how that person was or wasn't feeding you in the relationship as well. And you have the opportunity to recognize that you can always, once you get through the healing process, start that process with someone else. Right? And you can end up in a better situation to where not only do you have, you know, the habitual aspect of a relationship that feeds you, but you also have someone who speaks to your spirit at the same time. Because that was what I was lacking in my previous relationships was, you know what I'm saying, it was fun, it was cool, whatever. But when I really needed someone who could genuinely speak to who I am at my core, I felt like I was always coming up short.
It definitely goes back to looking at the facts of your relationship. I personally have taken probably all of my breakups pretty badly. I dealt with them pretty poorly. Just because I am a giver, and when that doesn't work out, and I'm also a dreamer. Wow. I was a person that had a crush, let's say in middle school, and I would be like imagining our whole life together. No, really, like I would take like these little moments and just like really exacerbate them to be like, this is the one, like what is our family gonna be like the whole nine. And if I was doing that at that age, imagine like the plans I was making for people I was actually dating, you know? So when that would end, like it was dramatic, you know? But one of the ways that I kind of pulled myself back together was looking at what the relationship really was in reality. Like what happened? What are the facts? You know, because if I focus on, and we have a tendency to remember all the good times, you know, all the highlights. You just roll that highlight reel and you keep watching or how we met. That too. You think about how we met, you know, where we were supposed to go, like the things that we did, the places that we went, like all of these things. And sometimes we forget about those little things. Like this person didn't really feed me, you know, like we did all these things, we went all these places, but was I fully being myself? Was I in a space where I trusted this person, you know, or were we just going through the motions, creating habits together and building the relationship on memories and not on actuality, not on like who we are as people and do we connect, you know?
At your core, we are truly connected and really
like,
experiencing one another for who you were. Or were you just experiencing life while the person was next to you?
Exactly.
So it's a difference between experiencing someone and having experiences with someone. Because you can really copy and paste anybody into that position.
You have to think about that.
But it's a lot to truly experience someone at their core and feel like who they truly are.
And it takes time. And that's why we both kind of agreed that you don't have to be 100% healed to move to the next relationship or find yourself in another relationship, because that healing process, the process of looking back and reflecting on what were you supposed to take from that relationship, there's no time stamp on that. You know, it's not like, and it's interesting because when we break up or when people break up, and you think about a friend who's had a breakup, we kind of like give them some time, and then after a while we're like, okay, let's wrap it up. Like we're good, right? But in reality, there is no time stamp. As much as we want to rush it, as much as we want to be done with it and move on, like depending on how long it takes you or what it looks like for you to process. Like maybe you're a writer, like maybe you're just a thinker, maybe you like to sit and ponder on things. Like depending on who you are, kind of dictates how long that process is going to be.
It might take a little bit.
And I feel like as we continue to grow, we're going to continue to learn things about those past relationships.
Yeah, that's very true.
Because we've been together for 3 years, and there have been plenty of times where I can think back to something, and it may be based on something you did or something we experienced or just like a healthy habit we're now walking in, for me to realize that was absent elsewhere. You know what I mean? Like, that's not something I ever experienced because we lacked that in my previous relationships, you know? So you're always, and you're continuously learning from the things that you went through.
Yeah.
And I think a level of appreciation, when that grows, you're able to look back and not have bitterness, you know, and not feel resentful. Like, you're able to take it for what it was, appreciate that person for how they did love you, if it was, you know,
in any shape, form,
any way beneficial.
Because it's not always all negative.
Yep.
You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think, at least when we first got started, like, I always said Jasmine was an answer prayer, because I was like, Lord, like, I need someone who really gonna be able to talk to me.
Yeah.
Right? Because folk who know me know I'm pretty complex. Right? I'm not a one-trick pony in any way, shape, form. And I need someone who's going to be able to maneuver my complexities. And a lot of people can relate to that, where it's like, to like my peoples, I have a responsibility to them. To other people, I have a responsibility to them. That means I have to pull from different parts of who I am to meet certain criteria and requirements. And that, especially for anybody, is a lot, right? You getting pulled and pushed from so many different positions. So you will want your person to be the most understanding individual in your life, to the point where I know that whatever level of my personality is poking its head out the most today, I know that when it's time to rest, when it's time to lean in, that this person is going to be there to really, like, allow me to do that, right? And Jasmine was able, from jump, I felt I could lean on her regardless of who I was that day, honestly and truly, or how I was feeling that day. And that was always important to me, because I felt like in previous experiences, I felt like I couldn't fully lean in.
You couldn't fully rest.
I couldn't fully rest, because I felt like whoever I was with at the time was going to either, like, let me fall, right, or
make it worse,
or was just didn't create an atmosphere to where I felt like I could fully be off, right? And that, to me, kind of like laid the foundation of a level of resentment in those relationships. And that kind of can transfer into a level of bitterness too, once you realize that it's like, oh, there is a better version of that. But you always talk about, like, making sure that you forgive those individuals in those situations.
I think when we were thinking about what we wanted to talk about in terms of moving on or healing from these past relationships, for me, it kind of came down to, okay, so we're out of the relationship, we've separated ourselves. Now I'm feeling all of these emotions. And I found myself realizing that it really comes down to forgiveness. You know, it comes down to forgiving that person, because there's a level of hurt that happens. You know, like, rarely ever do relationships end and we're just like,
all right, bro, it's all
you know, like, it doesn't really work that way, because of the level of investment that you did, you know, together for whatever amount of time, like, you committed to. And when it ends, you have to forgive that person, because, again, if they don't have the capacity to love you, like, as much as I say, like, recognize that and keep it pushing, like, it's still kind of hurtful, because you wanted them to, you know, like, you wanted them to rise to the occasion, love you the way you were supposed to, and y'all could, you know, live happily ever after. But when it doesn't happen, sometimes we can become angry with that person. Like, why didn't you try hard enough? You know, like, why didn't it matter to you for you to, like, do all these things that I needed you to do? In reality, they weren't meant to do those things. That's just, you know,
their capacity was limited.
Exactly.
In that regard. So
forgive them for any negative feelings that you're kind of harboring towards them, but also, like, forgive yourself. There've definitely been relationships where I've exited and I look back and I'm like, I was not being true to who I was, or I was kind of like shifting to kind of make it work, or like fit with this person that just wasn't supposed to fit with me, or I was compromising in terms of my behavior or my habits. Because a lot of times we'll morph into like what that other person needs us to be and kind of like let go of some of the things that we need just so things will work out, you know. And that level of complacency can have us stay in relationships that we were meant to leave like a long time ago. So, and that's what I was in a really long relationship coming out of high school. And once I left that relationship, forgiving myself became a huge part of getting past that relationship. It was a time where we were young, making reckless decisions. We didn't care who we were hurting. We were very selfish in this relationship. And when I got out of it, I recognized like the behaviors and the things that I allowed myself to do were not of who I was. You know, like, and I would rationalize them because, you know, we're happy. Or I would rationalize them because, you know, you're young, you're allowed to make these decisions and, you know, everything still be okay. But in reality, if a relationship is taking you out of who you are, once it's over, you have to recognize that, forgive yourself, and then begin learning, like, okay, if I did this in a relationship, why did I do it? You know, like, why did I conform to something that wasn't who, you know what I mean? Like, is it fear? Like, is it loneliness? What is it? And that's also part of healing. It's not just about that other person and them doing whatever they did for it to end or whatever you did. It's about what I need, what I learned, and how my next relationship can be better.
When you look at, that was all good. Those were gems. When you look at the word, right, romantic relationships in the Bible are one of the biggest lessons that God uses to show how you can get derailed from the path that he has you on, right? Samson was supposed to be that guy for a long time.
Good old Samson.
He was supposed to be the man for a long time. And the homie Delilah pulled up. I always imagined Delilah, you know what I'm saying? She got like real nice locks. You know what I'm saying? She probably like 5'9", you feel me? Brown skin. Samson, you know what I'm saying? Young strapping brother. Couldn't help himself, right? My man Samson get the haircut, eyes gouged. If you're not familiar with the story, I know I'm paraphrasing, but my thing is like, people like, bro, this is a Bible? But no, like, so many different, like Adam and Eve, like all these different influences that can come from within a romantic relationship, right? And of course, God gave us intimacy, God gave us passion, God gave us love, all of these things, and he wants positive things to manifest from them. But it has to be from the right person. Yeah. Right? It has to be from the person that God sent directly to you. So if it's not, and I feel like I've always been the type of person where you know for a fact, kind of in your gut,
for sure.
If that's your person. Yes. If that's really the person, right? And it's like if you get to that relationship and like he played me, she played me,
you really played yourself. Sorry. You really played yourself.
I was going to say that there was a couple signs, couple red flags that you might have turned to orange or beige and put to the wayside, right? But now you're hurt. But in hindsight, you recognize the certain aspects of who that person was that disrupted who you were, and that kind of like unsettled your spirit. You feel what I'm saying? So I think when it comes to forgiving yourself, right, you actually really need to connect with the Lord and ask him, like, in my next move, right, make it plain, show me exactly what I need to do for myself to truly prepare for the next person that you're ready to send into my life. Because the worst thing you can do, I think, we've all done it, is conform, like you said, in a relationship just for the sake of, you're not trying to be lonely, just for the sake of like convenience, if they just close, or for the sake of the fact that they're useful. Right? Let's not get it twisted that a lot of times we've been in situations where a person's utility took precedence over just who they were and how they really added to your life at your core. Right? A person's, just like the fact that they was close to you, right? Like they might have been across the street or next door. You feel me? Or if you were just using them to get over somebody else. right? Which also isn't fair to that person as well. So there's so many different elements of relationships that we can enter ourselves into that are not God ordained in the least bit. And those are elements that we really need to be focused on too. Because at the end of the day, like, God has someone perfectly crafted just in the tuck. And if you're not already with them, right, they're on the way. But you have to make sure that you're maneuvering life in a way that lets God know that you're ready for them.
Yeah. When you were talking about going to the Lord when going through this healing process, I was thinking about you also have to ask the Lord to reveal to you like the areas of insecurity, because those are really the areas that we tend to shift and change and conform, you know.
For sure.
Like if I'm insecure about X, you know, I may make sure that doesn't reveal itself, or make sure like whatever decisions I make, or not make sure, I will subconsciously make decisions kind of rooted in this fear of being seen, you know. So like really ask the Lord, like reveal to me the areas of my life or the areas of my character that I'm so quick to conform or so quick to change to please someone else because I'm not happy with it within myself. You know, and that all goes into forgiving yourself. You know, a lot of times we will push the blame on the other person, like so and so did this, and this, and that's why it's over.
And I was innocent, a perfect specimen in this relationship.
I was a great partner. In reality, if the relationship didn't work, like you weren't meant for them, and they weren't meant for you. So in the same vein that you can say that this person didn't have the capacity to love me correctly, like in reality, that means you may not have loved them correctly either. You weren't matched. You weren't yoked. You weren't equally yoked together. So that means that person could very well turn around and say the exact same thing about you.
And don't be salty.
Right, because it's like we said, like stick to the facts of the relationship. You know, like recognize your part in it. And I think a lot of people don't like to hear that, you know,
like that they had a role in it.
Yes, they had a part in it. Relationships. What is that song? It's something about like breaking even maybe it's uneven or something like that.
Do when your back's against the wall.
That is not the song I was talking about. It was a pop song, so you probably may not know it. But it talks about relationships ending and it breaking uneven or breaking even or something. And it always seems like one person like gets the brunt of like the hurt, but that doesn't mean the other person still isn't experiencing that. You know what I mean? Like both people have to heal from that relationship, whether you're the person that broke it off or the person that is
broken up with.
Getting broken up.
Getting broken. Dang. I hope not. Put yourself back together.
Oh my goodness.
Off and try again. So the follow-up question to all of this was, what was our process? We kind of already answered this a little bit, but what was our process of unlearning unhealthy habits from past relationships? How do you hold yourself accountable?
So we kind of wanted to segment into this one because the first part we're talking about how do you heal after a relationship has ended, you know, but this question specifically asks about when you have acknowledged or if you have notice or someone has told you or whatever that there is a trait, you know, there's a behavior, there is an unhealthy thing that you do. Like what do you do when you have that? What do you do? How do you change it? And how do you make sure that you are like sticking to the plan to like become a better version or a better partner to whether it's the person you're with now or just like in the future. So what I thought about was you kind of have to take the time to learn how you process things. So I'm a writer. So if Charles occasionally, like not really, but for the sake of my experience or sake of my example, I'll say that I'm a writer. So if I have left this relationship and I feel as though I have an unhealthy habit of like blowing up. So when I get angry, I just saying this and that, calling people out their name. Like I have a bad habit of blowing up, you know, whether my partner told me that that's a trait, a negative trait, or whether I just reflected within myself and discovered that is a habit that I have. I write it down. Like, I put words to what I'm trying to change, you know? So some people don't write, some people just think about it. Some people, whatever your process journey is, pinpoint what that behavior is. I think it starts by acknowledging what is it that is unhealthy and what is it that I'm trying to change.
True.
You know? And once you can pinpoint it, once you can name it, once you can articulate it, that's where you can start to put steps into place so that doesn't become a continuous cycle.
For sure.
I
think you bring up a good point, because I know in previous relationships, I always think about like what were the elements of the relationship that used to like keep me up at night, right? That were just like never really resolved.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like, let's just agree to disagree, blase. And what like elements of just like who I was, what I would say, what I would do, would just cause friction, right? More than once, like a recurring issue. And then transition that to this relationship. One, is that even an issue in this relationship?
Yep.
Right? Because it could have just been that person, right?
As a
You
result,
and that
yeah.
person's
Mm-hmm.
interaction. So sometimes you might think something is a problem in one relationship. You get over here, it's like, oh, I'm not even tripping off that, right?
Yeah.
So but then you might see a similarity, right? Where it's like, all right, so in this jump, that was a problem. In this jump, it's a problem. How was it received in the previous jump? Okay. Was it how I was doing things that caused the issue? Was it the other person? All right, It was me. All right, so let's look at different ways that I can communicate this jump in this relationship. The biggest thing for me was like, all right, bruh, you prayed on this. This is it, right? This is how I was talking to myself in the beginning of this relationship. Like, this is it. We gonna call it. Throwing in the towel, right? What are the elements of who you are as a person that need to be polished and improved and
Deleted,
discarded, all that stuff that needs to be like shifted in order for you to be the best version of who you are, the best person that you can be, in order to ensure that this jump lasts, right? And the biggest thing for me was my communication, right? So now, especially in the beginning, over communicating.
Yeah.
Right? Expressing my feelings to a T. All right? Making sure that if I don't like something, I say something.
Yeah.
If she does, creating the atmosphere where if she doesn't like something, she's able to say something.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And even if it's a gut punch, where it's like, oh, that's like, you just came for like one of the major elements of who I am as a person.
Yeah.
Right? But like that will happen in a relationship. But isn't it better than the alternative to where there wasn't even a space for you to communicate at all in your previous relationships? Yeah. So you have to be willing, I think, to just change, period, right? Mm-hmm. And when people say like change, they think like, oh, so you want me to be like, to flip who I am? Like, and my thing is, if you're in a relationship and you're like, you just got to accept me for who I am. Ooh. Now, there's a duality to that statement, right? Mm-hmm. Because in a healthy relationship, you accept the person for where they are, right? But you should anticipate that they grow and get better as you go along.
True.
Right? You shouldn't be automatically like change everything about you in a relationship. That's not realistic.
Yeah.
Right? But you should be always willing and ready and able to improve upon yourself.
Yeah.
Right? Improve upon your morals are your morals, your values are your values. But like the practices that you portray to your partner, like the levels of communication that you have, you should always be working to improve upon the things that are going to bring you and your partner closer and secure your foundation. If you're not willing to do that, you should probably ask yourself the question of whether or not you're really ready to be in a relationship. All right? And you should want to change for you first, and then your partner, right? And your partner should want the same. No party should be like forcing the other to change at their pace. Right, each party should be changing at their own pace. So
I think part of like it's interesting because we talk a lot from experience, of course, like how we have healed from past relationships. You know, like how we have pinpointed these unhealthy behaviors and how we have communicated with our partner, each other. And how we, come to the other side of some of the things that we are just beginning to heal from. Mm-hmm. But it seems so much easier said than done. Mm-hmm. Like, And I think for me, at the beginning of our relationship, Charles talks about how he over communicated with me. He overly communicated with me. But for me, on my end, it was more so like me over communicating with myself. You know, like if I pinpointed a behavior that I did not want to continue in this relationship, specifically, I had a really bad habit of like shrinking in terms of conflict. You know, like I don't like conflict. I will literally all around conflict all day long. I just don't like it. I don't like the idea that I'm in the position to hurt someone, whether it's their feelings. Like I don't like it. So, but I knew that in my past relationships, if I didn't articulate when I was upset, I would just push it down and push it down and push it down. And so there was a point where like, I can no longer push it down. And now I no longer like you. You know what I mean? It's like a lot of my relationships ended because I pushed stuff down so much that when it erupted, there was no room to reconcile. Repair, yeah. You know what I mean? There was no room to, you know, talk about it and get on the other side. It was like, now I've hurt your feelings so much that like we can't even be friends, you know? So
like we're not even cool.
Like
no
we
more,
can't
bro.
even like
it's been cool, you know what I'm saying?
We really gotta keep it pushing this situation. But I knew that if I wanted this to work and I wanted us to build a healthy foundation, I had to speak up. So when things would happen where Charles would say something that I didn't necessarily like, or something would happen that would cause me to feel a type of way, I had to talk to myself and say, okay, in this moment, you can not say anything and suppress it, push it down like you normally do, like you naturally do, or you can take a second, process what you need to process, and have a conversation with Charles, you know? So before it ever became between us, it was really between myself. Like I had to continuously talk about and continuously decide what I was going to do in these situations, you know, until it became more natural. Now I'm at a place where it doesn't take me a couple days. It may take me a couple hours, you know, like that was the process that I had to go on to be in the position where it becomes second nature for me to say, Charles, we got to talk. You know what I mean? Or like... or whatever.
Least favorite sentence in the English language.
Whatever. But it took me processing and me acknowledging how I naturally behave and what I wanted to change within myself, and making those decisions on a situation by situation basis. You know, I didn't make the decision and then say I'm never going to do this again, and I never had to deal with it. You know what I mean? Yeah. It was every difficult conversation, I had to decide that I was going to have that conversation, you know? So I would say, and you also talked about the communication between partners, but that takes a level of trust for sure. Like,
oh, you have to establish that, most definitely.
Right. So at the foundation of the relationship, as you guys are building, communicating that like honesty and like creating a safe space is extremely important. So when you want to articulate like these are the areas that I'm trying to work on, you're pouring that into someone who is invested in your growth. Yeah. You know what I mean? You're not pouring it into someone that's like, well, you're going to have to, well, yeah, that's not going to work if you want us to work. Like, no, it's not them saying, yeah, you should probably fix that. It's them saying, okay, like, what can I do? What can we do to build a foundation that you're comfortable, you know, talking to me when it's not easy, or you're comfortable, like, discussing with me, like, what areas you're trying to grow in, you know? So it can be a lot, but I think it starts with you. It starts with your self-talk. It starts with what you want to change for yourself, like Charles said. And then it becomes, now we built this foundation. You can help hold me accountable as well. You know?
Change creates opportunity, right? So it's like if you were rocking and rolling with somebody, let's say for a solid year, right? A lot can change in a year. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. You told me last year that I'd be stuck in the crib because outside is sick.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have been able to even say anything to you. But I think like in any relationship, right, you don't want it to end. Hopefully you don't go in that joint wanting it to end. But it changes. Mm-hmm. Things grow, you'll change, they'll change. And if it ends, right, you have all of those lessons to go off of, right? And now you have the opportunity to take all of those lessons and add it into not only to who you are, because that should be the first step, right? Add it to who you are, and then get ready for the next go around. And hopefully through prayer, meditation, and resting and having a level of discernment, you'll be like, all right, my next move is going to be my best move, and that's going to be with my best person, right? So I think in anything, and the overlooming lesson for this was just making sure that you're cool with yourself, right? Not to say that you're completely 100% like polished and the perfect version of who you are, right? But you're secure in the decisions that you're making. Yeah. You're secure in the fact that like you went through what you went through, and you're better for a reason, and you're better for it, right? And God guided you through that, right? And has you on the path to your next step, to your next phase. And simply like, bro, everybody can come with you. Yeah. Right? But you always gonna be with you. God always gonna be with you. Yeah. That's it. As long as you recognize those two truths, you'll never really have a true misstep. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I would say taking a step back from all the situations, all of the like advice we've given so far in the circle, all the way back to how we started, and we talking about David, talking about like God being your safe place, you know, in the moments where we feel lonely, like the moments after the relationship, when you're feeling lonely, when you're feeling down, when it may cause you to feel depressed, when you are feeling such these heavy feelings, when you're trying to get to the place where you can even acknowledge those behaviors before you are ready to commit to starting this process of healing, before you can even think about, you know, starting anything with anyone new. Like there comes a time where you have to acknowledge that in this moment, there's only one person who can truly help me. There's only one person that can truly grant me a sense of peace, you know, where I can still where I'm still able to feel loved. I'm still able to feel wanted. I'm still able to feel worthy, even in a time where another person hasn't necessarily like left me feeling that way. We can always look to the Lord to be there for us, whether you're in a relationship or whether you're not, whether you are in a healthy relationship or whether you just ended a relationship. Like regardless of where you are in the process, like the Lord is always going to be there to be a constant, you know, a constant source of love, a constant source of peace, a constant source for everything that we look to for a person to add to, you know. Does that make sense?
That was good. That last part. That we look to for a person to add to. Come on, somebody. Don't put a person in place where God is supposed to.
Ooh, that's a whole nother.
You know what I'm saying? That's a whole
nother. But yeah.
You feel me? But honestly and truly, like, make sure that above all, every relationship you have in your life, like, make sure that you're tuned into what the Father is saying to you. So, all right, so make sure you like, share, subscribe. Do all those things. Follow us on the socials.
Yes.
The IGs, the Twitters, the Facebooks. We appreciate any and everybody. Like we growing. We trying to be a little bit more consistent with the with the content as well as the content creation.
Yes.
But you know, we appreciate everyone for rocking with us as always. We love doing this.
We really do.
It's really dope, man.
It's cool. It's cool to take a time to reflect before we come on here and kind of talk about our experiences. We first have to, you know, reflect within ourselves, and then we reflect together, and then from that we come up with what we want to share with you all. So we definitely do appreciate the support, and we appreciate you guys always sending us questions. For those of you who reach out for advice, like we don't take that lightly that you have entrusted us to, you know, help you in any way that you see or any way that you want us to. So we appreciate you all. We're so grateful, and we will see you next time.
Stay hopeful.